Yeah, welcome in to another fun edition of Libservative, the show of two intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. Happy to have you aboard. He, as always, is Corey Walsh.
And he's Dan Griffin.
It's going to be an interesting show because Corey has been on his deathbed for the last few days.
I'm literally in my bed right now.
He's drinking a hot toddy as we speak, trying to get better. As far as we know, he doesn't have COVID, but nobody cares about COVID anymore. So even if he has COVID, who gives a shit?
China cares about COVID, Dan.
Well, barely. Only because they're forced to.
Well, the ones that are dying, I'm sure, care. It's a great start to the show, right? And welcome to the Libservative.
How could you say that? My grandfather, who was 97 years old, died of COVID. All right. Admittedly, that was me.
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. And you can find our monologues at libservativepodcast@wordpress.com. Our TikTok videos, which we're actually starting to do a little bit more again, Dan, can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today.
Couple of things.
Subscribe.
Couple of things to notice if you're watching the live show this evening or on YouTube or anywhere else. First of all, I am not, in fact, Bizarro Tim Pool. I'm not wearing a hat this evening. You can see I do, in fact, have hair. So there's that. And also, Corey moved to Hawaii. So here we are.
Does it look like I'm in Hawaii? Am I giving good vibes in this Michigan weather?
Even the color of that wall paint behind you. It's just,
do you like that?
It's so islandy.
I made this shelf myself. It's 2 longboards. Arts and crafts, buddy.
Hawaii it is.
A little ukulele up there.
Like that uke up there. You play
I
that
can play it. You want me to?
Only if you play Mele Kalikimaka next year when we do our
I know 4 chords, and it's like A, G, C, F, and luckily those are the same 4 chords for virtually every song. But that thing is probably so out of tune because I haven't fucked with it in a little while.
No,
so,
don't do that tonight. We don't need all that.
Nope.
So you've been on your deathbed the last 3 days. So you haven't consumed anything.
Call it my life bed.
Your life bed? Okay, that's good.
Life support.
You haven't consumed anything in the cultural arena. We were talking about this before the show, and I just wanted to make sure that people knew that you're not doing your job.
I know I'm not consuming. Been watching just same old shit, just watching South Park the other day. Went to over the weekend, I'm like in the room that I'm
kind of dum.
in the room that I'm currently turning into the studio because we're doing a bunch of moving of shit around and stuff in the house. There was a couple of soft spots on the subfloor. So on Sunday I wasn't feeling very productive because I didn't do much. I was like at a diaper party. Shout out to Putty, and he's about to have a beautiful baby girl. I don't know if he watches the show or not, but
soft spot on the floor, ironically enough, where CJ was conceived.
Yes. And I wasn't feeling productive, so I went in there, just started ripping up carpet and just ripping up the subfloor. And then the week started and got back to work, and then I got sick, so there's just holes in my floor in my room, so I haven't had a chance to move the actual studio. So here I am in the bedroom in the most aesthetically pleasing backdrop right now.
You shouldn't have said that, Corey. You're just in Hawaii.
I am in Hawaii. I'm wearing this shirt and everything. 3-hour difference.
It's true. I've been
5 hours.
consuming Douglas Murray's podcast. I didn't realize it existed, but it's fucking amazing. Uncensored History. I think it started back in November. I'm glad I found out that it existed, and it basically goes over history through the eyes of the way that it should be seen, which is within historical context. Because as we know, multiple historical events are now kind of viewed through 2022/2023 eyes, which is why it's really easy to say things like Abraham Lincoln was a racist. In context, he probably was. In the context of today, he probably was. But These stories are these figures and events are very much told through a lens in which there is nuance and they make sense contextually from the time period in which they took place, which is what history is supposed to be. And one of the things discussed in one of the episodes, I don't really remember which one, was a lot about how the how history has been completely chopped away in American schools. And it was actually started by George W. Bush in the No Child Left Behind campaign, where it was easier to cut history in lieu of things like science and mathematics and the STEM fields. And the point of that is basically that, well, it kind of makes sense that America's youth doesn't really understand history in context as it should be understood anymore, which infuriates people like you and I, Corey, because you and I are both history buffs. I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by where we came from, how we got here, the good, the bad, the ugly. And even when you talk about historical figures like an Abraham Lincoln or even an Adolf Hitler or a Robert E. Lee, discussing them within context, and even the historical figures that we consider to be American heroes, Abe Lincoln, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, it's okay to discuss their flaws as well without completely
writing them off,
making their entire person and their I guess their historical importance about their flaws, especially in the context of 2020. It's a great podcast. If you like history, Douglas Murray's Uncanceled History is a fantastic listen. So,
well, like we said last week, don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I also wanted to talk about this because this is fucking hilarious.
Like my cup of joy.
A comment that we got on our YouTube channel for some reason from Matthew Cuomo. It says, so I have put in some if you like names on our description. So if you like certain other podcasters, writers, journalists, whatever, you may like our show. So one of them that I have on there is Dan Carlin. And Dan Carlin is on that list with people like the Daily Wire and NPR and Matt Taibbi and Barry Weiss and Joe Rogan and all of these other relatively controversial figures, depending on, where you sit. And when I was writing this list out, I was like, Dan Carlin is going to be the one that nobody will ever shit on. And sure enough,
Matthew Cuomo
couldn't resist. He says Dan Carlin is is an eloquent propagandist, not a historian. Stop being dull lobotomy patients and not recognizing the obvious when you come across a personality as overt as that and what he represents. But of course, that doesn't actually say what he believes Dan Carlin represents. But that was hysterical to me. Of all of the names on that list.
Right. And what did Dan Carlin ever say that's propagandist?
I have no idea. Corey, I have no clue. I mean, you can find it in anything. You can call anybody a propagandist. We're propagandists.
Are we?
I mean, I think technically, yeah. I guess you could say that we are. We're propagandists against the two-party system.
That's true.
Do you agree with that?
I propagate tearing down all the alphabet agencies.
Calling somebody a propagandist is not offensive because anybody who's in this space in some way or another is a propagandist.
I'm just glad I put pants on today, and then this asshole comes in here. No, I'm just teasing. I just feel like shit. I'm drinking a hot toddy.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. This is live conservative. But yeah,
I'm sucking down on a whiskey sour. That's made the way a whiskey sour should be made, by the way. Vegan Pretty Feed.
Hey, what's up, vegan?
She says she's a propagandist, so she's multiple propagandists, which is fantastic. We should all aspire to be multiple propagandists. I'm sure it was just a typo, but I had to make fun of you a little bit there, vegan. Anyway,
one of our only fans, you're just gonna
it's not a good show unless you shit on your fans.
Is that why we only have a couple fans?
Just ask Steven Crowder, who we'll get to a little bit.
I don't know. This goes against everything I've learned in marketing.
That's why marketing experts aren't entertainers like you and I. Are we though? Are we that? We can't be that entertaining.
I think we're entertaining. People come back. I think that's a sign that we're somewhat entertaining.
They give us a second chance.
Yeah.
third
Over here with my cup of joy.
A third chance is really hard to get, though. Oh, anyway, do you have anything else you wanted to? Any other housekeeping for us, Corey, or was that it?
I just really need to learn how to make pork belly on the smoker
That too.
because it's so goddamn good.
Pork belly. Dan Carlin's a piece of shit, and you're about to die. That's
propagandists.
That's right.
And apparently we're dull lobotomy patients. Which, a little bit of history. Did you know that lobotomies were just passed around at a certain time? It was like either the late 1800s or the early 1900s, but lobotomies were like marketed as like a mood enhancer.
Yeah, I don't think it was that early though.
What do you mean?
I don't think it was that early in history.
It was like 1800s. Like it was enough to where it was past the printing press. Like, because like it was in newspapers to where like people were like, this one guy was bragging how he could do like 90 lobotomies in a day.
I do remember hearing a vague story of that. 1935, the Portuguese neurologist Egas Moniz invented the lobotomy and initially called it the lusotomy.
Holy shit! So it was even later than I thought. This we're talking.
What I said. I thought it was later on in history. What are we,
Jesus.
Dan Carlin? Jeez,
Yeah.
terrible.
Not a very terrible.
Terrible historians we are. Yeah, where the hell are we going to start tonight? I gotta look at our banners here for a second. Oh God, we got to start here because I actually feel a little bit proud. If you are a longtime listener to the show, you might remember from our New Year's show just a couple of weeks ago that I made the prediction that we would start to see the steady decline, or I don't know how fast it's going to be, but we would start to see the decline of quote unquote wokeism, which is a word that I have begun to hate. I don't know if I speak for Corey on that, but it's kind of a gross word at this point.
It's just a goalpost that constantly gets moved, just like conservatism.
But I think it may be beginning. And I pulled an article from a publication that if you're a lefty, you've probably never heard of. If you're a right winger, you think that it's probably not as hardcore, I guess, as it could be. The Western Journal. This is a publication that, in my view, is certainly right wing, but not like gratuitously right wing. Not like every story. It's not like The Blaze, where everything has to be calling out wokeism.
It's actually something we're even trying to get away from.
Yeah, I would call it right wing NPR or close to that in that realm. So they put out a piece which quoted what was the original? Forbes, that quoted a Forbes piece calling out the new HBO Max show Velma. Have you watched any of this, Corey?
Nope. Have you?
I have not, and I am afraid to.
Maybe that's what I should have consumed.
I'm skeptical of this show at this point. So you might be wondering, like, why would this be the beginning of the end of wokeism? Because this show, according to almost every single review, is so laughably woke that even lefties hate it. That's how woke it is. Not only do lefties hate it, they actually think that it's so comically woke that they actually believe that Mindi Kaling, the creator, who you might remember from The Office or whatever that show she had on Hulu for a while, that she is actually a conservative actor trying to
discredit wokeism,
trying to make woke politics look ridiculous. Now, I've seen some clips from this show, and it certainly looks that way. It is comically woke to the point where Velma is, and I'm hoping, and I'm just assuming that everybody that listens to our show has at least seen Scooby-Doo or understands it or one of the movies, whatever. So Velma is Indian, which is okay. Honestly, I don't really have an issue with that because Mindy Kaling voices her, and Mindy Kaling is Indian. So whatever. You change the race of Velma, that doesn't bother me at all. Didn't think twice about that. They had to make Shaggy black, but they didn't name him Shaggy. They named him by his actual name, which is mentioned in Scooby-Doo, which by the way is slipping my mind right now, but you can look that up. Again, didn't really bother me. Okay. Daphne and Fred are still white. Okay, so the races of the characters, I have no issue with. Don't give a shit. Doesn't bother me one bit whatsoever. It's when you start to break these characters down. It's when you start to see that Daphne is the bitchy, rich, popular white girl, a complete, Gen Z Karen type figure.
Yeah, like straight up out of like Mean Girls.
100%. Yeah. And then you even have like a gratuitous makeout scene, I guess, between Velma and Daphne, even though Velma is supposed to like kind of hate Daphne. I don't really know.
Just for research purposes, which episode is that one, Dan?
I don't know. It's got to be one of the first 2 episodes.
I need to know this.
That's when I saw this review.
I'm just kidding.
But probably the worst gratuitous woke part of this show is Fred. So Fred is the same blonde white guy that he's always been in every other adaptation of Scooby-Doo. And the issue is that Fred in Scooby-Doo in adaptations gone by, he's always the leader of the group, right? That's how you remember him, right, Corey?
Yeah.
Fred's the leader. He's the one that kind of comes to the conclusion at the end. And
he sends off Scooby and Shaggy on their own and then brings Velma and Daphne with him. And you never see what they're doing. You always just see what Scooby and Shaggy are doing.
Yeah. But at the end, he always ends up catching the bad guy.
He at least is the one that always rips the mask off.
So instead of Fred being that leader character, he is now portrayed as, and I mean this literally, this is what is said about him by Velma in the show, rich white guy with a small dick. And he's also portrayed as a fucking idiot. And to me, like, I wonder if you feel the same way, Corey. Like, I'm not like trying to be that white guy that's like offended by the fact that the white guy was
white guy with a small dick and it hit too close to home, Dan.
Whatever. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a rich white guy, but I do have a small dick, and I'll admit that to anyone. I don't really give a shit. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother my fiance either, as far as I know. So I look at the way Fred is portrayed, and it doesn't, I'm not like offended by it. I just look at it and I go, it's just so obvious what you're trying to do. You're trying to make white guys this lesser than in your show. You're otherizing white men. It's silly. It doesn't make any sense. And I might take the time to actually watch at least the first episode of this show just to make sure that what I'm saying is true. But every review that I've seen of this show is bad. And when you have even people on the left going, this show has to be a psyop. Like, that's the conspiracy theory from people on the left at this point. Velma is a psyop to make left-wing politics look ridiculous.
But one thing that always kind of makes me curious about stuff like this is like Mindy was on The Office and she was a great character, granted. Well, no, she wasn't necessarily a stereotype in the show.
She was a female stereotype in the show. She was just like a ditzy girl. That's what she was. Ditzy, talkative girl, boy crazy, She was.
And
she was a little bit of a stereotype in that show.
But other than that, like, her show failed. And then when she made that one show, like the Mindy show or whatever. And I don't understand how certain people like just keep getting to fail up. You see it in politics a lot, but then you also see it like for certain people. And wow, that made it sound bad when I said certain people. That's not what I meant at all. That's not what I meant. But like some people can like just write bad shows and then just be able to brush it off and do it again. And how many times does someone get a pass to write shitty shows before they go,
I
all
don't
right, that's
know.
enough.
The Forbes article was titled "Velma is so bad it spawned psyop conspiracy theories." Velma is so bad, in fact, this is coming from the Forbes article. Velma is so bad, in fact, that it's spawning conspiracy theories that creator Mindi Kaling made what is essentially a parody of what the right wing thinks left wing comedy is like. Forbes contributor Paul Tassi wrote, as in a show that not just recast most roles with new races, which again I don't give a shit about that part, but also features loads and loads of white guy am I right jokes. So Tassi then broke down the very meta way in which Velma is actually a vehicle to help conservatives. The idea is that Kaling is secretly a conservative force in media trying to make the left look bad by making a cringy adult cartoon full of, quote, rich white guy small dick jokes that the right can point at as everything wrong with race recasted social justice influenced media. Now, the race recast part, I don't really give a shit about, honestly. Like, I don't care that the Little Mermaid is black now. I'm sorry. I have other things to give a shit about.
Yeah, I don't care.
I really
Right.
just don't care. But yeah, it's like, if you're like, why is it okay to make stereotypical jokes and otherizing jokes about white men? I mean, somebody else answer that who's not a white man, which you can't do, Corey. Maybe somebody can. Like, explain to me why it's okay.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't know. We're just an easy target, I guess. I
and
mean, granted, we had a good run. We were the ones on the top of the heap for a minute there, and I guess everyone is a little like, all right, give someone else the spotlight, which I guess makes sense, but I don't know. Just open up the aperture a little bit. And let the spotlight just include other people.
it's,
I don't know, Dan. What the fuck? Really putting me on the spot here on this one.
I'm not really,
I'm just trying to
I'm not
drink my
like
hot
overly
toddy.
offended about it, but I think it's okay to ask the question. You know, like there's just like one group of people that it's just okay to stereotype, and it happens to be you and me. It happens to be you and me. It doesn't
Look at
bother
me
me. It's
over
fine.
here looking like a boogaloo boy.
You are kind of looking like a boogaloo boo tonight. Boogaloo boo.
Boogaloo.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, I wanted to bring that up because I made an interesting prediction to start the year, and I feel like
That
this is
yeah,
the first step.
it is, and it's interesting that it's not even necessarily the right because like the right, like we actually talk about Crowder later,
The right was
but
always going to hate the show. I mean,
yeah, it doesn't matter. The right was gonna hate the show no matter what, but the left is like, what the fuck is this? Is actually pretty comical to me.
the fact that you're making fun of the way you think we think comedy goes, it's just so bizarre.
Right.
It's so bizarre.
Oh, you know what? Snake Meaner just made a comment or whatever, and it was like basically kind of saying some of the shit that we're saying in a sense. Like if we don't like it, then we're racist and hate female leads, which is just an umbrella thing, which is fair. But he said, case in point, Last of Us on Netflix. I don't know if he's talking about The Last of Us of the new show on HBO, because that is actually a show I've been consuming and I started watching it, and it's actually really fucking good.
Based on the video game, right?
Yeah, did you ever play the video game?
I never did play the video game.
Dude, they're doing a really good job so far. Like the opening scenes of how like the cinematography, it reminded me of the video game. And it's pretty fucking good. And I'm excited for the next episode on Sunday. Skip Last of Us 2. I didn't play honestly. So when I just going off a little tangent here. I started playing Last of Us, the first one. I only got a little bit far because it was at the same time when I bought my PS4, I got Last of Us and GTA 5, and I quickly just hopped into GTA 5 after playing Last of Us for a little bit because I couldn't kill these clickers in this one fucking mission. And I got frustrated and started playing GTA 5 and didn't look back.
I know that Twitch is a gamer platform. I am not a gamer. Sorry, kids.
You know what? I should hop on here as Absurd and just stream some gaming every once in a while. I love trolling people.
Go ahead. People can watch me get my ass kicked at FIFA at the
Dude,
top.
I fucking love proximity chat so much on New Warzone and DMZ. Just playing so like during Christmas, come flying into a spot where you know there's other players like blasting the song in my microphone, simply having a wonderful Christmas time, knowing the other players can hear it.
Just start a podcast with Stink Meaner over here. You don't need me anymore.
Well, I don't know. You might be an asshole. I don't know, Stink Meaner.
We're all
I'm just goofing around, Stink Meaner.
especially if he's a white guy with a small dick.
Like us, they join the club. Here we go.
White guys with small dicks. I did want to shift the making fun of to. I mean, I guess this isn't really making fun of the right, but it is kind of, in a way. If you're ready to move on, Corey.
I'm just gonna end it with this. When it comes to things like Velma and all of these shows, I almost feel like it's kind of counterintuitive where people, we're talking about trying to be more inclusive in our society, of making shows that involve more people of color in the community, people of color and from their community and stuff like that. I want to see some creative writing. Like, look at like Key and Peele. Like, which one is it? Is it Jordan Peele who's making all these like horror movies?
Yeah.
Or is it? Yeah. I'm tired of people taking stuff that's already written and then just flipping the script and just changing the characters. And it's not because
it's gratuitous.
And it's not because I'm thinking that they're like, oh, they're taking away my history. I'm not thinking anything like that. I just want to see some new, fresh writing. But I also say this because even in art, even for like white people, we're just constantly seeing reboots and remakes of the same shit over and over. And we're just changing the plot a tiny bit or adding a little bit of wokeism to it. I just want to see fresh content across the whole board.
Great example. The movie Bros. You remember that when that came out, like over the summer?
No.
You don't even know what I'm talking about, do you?
Nope.
So this was a regular fucking rom-com. That's all it was, except it was two gay dudes that fell in love with each other. It was just a fucking stereotypical rom-com. The only difference was that it was two dudes. That's it. It's just a shitty rom-com. But when you didn't like it, you were a homophobe.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, clearly this was a movie made for gay men. And I
hate all shitty rom-coms.
I hope gay men went out and enjoyed that film. Like, whatever, you like it, go ahead. I don't give a shit. Like, it's not for me. It's not for me. It goes to like, the idea of, we shouldn't go see Black Panther because it's not our movie. Why is it okay in that instance, but not okay with a movie like Bros?
I actually think Black Panther's a badass character. And so, like, and when it comes to stuff like that, like Black Panther, that's a story that is old. Like, it's its own storyline, its own plot line. I'm tired of people grifting, and it's not necessarily like the people watching it. It's the people at the top who write this shit that are grifting and just changing the face of a character to fit a stereotype to make a bunch of $1 million on it, and just lazy writing instead of writing a whole new story.
All you did with something like Bros was you just went out and wrote like an Owen Wilson, Katherine Heigl rom-com with two guys. That's it. We've seen that movie 7,000 fucking times.
Just less boobs in the movie.
We have to pretend like this one is somehow better because it's two gay men. And it's like you and I and
if you critique it, it's like shrouded in this like the special.
You and I as straight men with testosterone running through our veins that wouldn't mind maybe going to see a rom-com that has a hot chick in it, just as a thing to do on a Friday with our girlfriend or fiance.
Like, for example, Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones had a lot of tips touching and stuff like that.
Oh, dude. Yeah, well, South Park made fun of that forever.
And I didn't even give a shit about that because I liked Game of Thrones because it was fresh and it was new. It was based off of a book. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to go watch a rom-com because it's, instead of it being two girls or two guys or a guy and a girl, and they replaced it with two guys.
Well, it can't just be a bad movie. You know what I mean? Which is, at the end of the day, is what it was. Which is a bad film. That's
Didn't
really
they already
it.
make a rom-com about two guys called Brokeback Mountain?
Actually, you know what? You want to know something funny? I actually liked that movie.
Did you?
That's a good movie. You didn't like Brokeback Mountain?
Never watched it.
I thought it was well done. It was a good drama. Like, that's different. It wasn't gratuitous.
Right, I know. I want something fresh.
Story.
I want new stuff. I'm tired of I'm not gonna go and watch a movie that I've already seen and they just change the characters but have the same plot.
You all you did was change the sexual orientation of the characters. That's what Bros was.
Oh man.
So yeah, Brokeback Mountain and Bros, not the same. I'll take Brokeback Mountain all day long. Great film. Anyway, I think we can move on to shitting on conservatives a little bit. Just a little bit, but only a few conservatives. Only a certain type of conservatives. Corey, you and I discovered this week that online conservative media is what we've always known. And even Steven Crowder knows it. We're going to play you a little clip. Maybe you've seen this from Steven Crowder's show from yesterday, which would have been, in case you're listening on the podcast, I believe the 17th of January, the year of our Lord 2023.
Praise him.
Corey and I have always called out the conservative media as, and I'm not even talking about like Fox News or Newsmax or whatever. We're not talking about the cable people. We already know what they're in the business of. We already know they're in the business of grifting, but we've always made the conclusion that folks like The Blaze and the Daily Wire and others like that are just as cringe and grifty as a place like Occupy Democrat or the Young Turks or some of the other more left-wing
Pod Save America.
They're all over the place. As some of the more left-wing media outlets, and it's basically just a grift to
low-hanging fruit.
Get you to pay money out of fear. Like, you're going to sign up for the Daily Wire because you're afraid of liberals. Like, that's the only reason to sign up for the Daily Wire.
Or conservatives.
Or conservative. Yeah, and we have never. What's funny is Corey and I have actually given on this show credit to people like Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro at the Daily Wire when they get things right, because sometimes they do. Corey and I watched What is a Woman? I thought it was a well-done documentary. I thought it had a lot of interesting and poignant things to say, but I think on the whole, places like the Daily Wire, to me, they're grifting off of your fear. Look at what they report on. It's all just anti-woke. Like, every time you walk out of the house, if you're in, a suburb of Kansas City, Missouri, every time you walk out of the house, you're going to see a drag queen flashing his dick. Like, that is what you tend to think you're getting when you take in some of these more conservative publications. Doesn't mean they get things wrong all the time, because they don't get things wrong all the time. Steven Crowder made it quite clear that it is nothing more than a grift, because they are cucking out to the
big tech.
Yeah, the big tech industry. And we'll let Steven tell you himself. Let me pull this up for you real quick here.
Launched mugclubforever.com, where you can sign up just to be able to reach you. This really isn't about that, so I want to create some separation here. Business relationships end all the time. That's business. But I was in a period to field offers from other people, other key players in this movement. They flooded in. Now, before you guess who it is, before you start trying to do some...
So Steven received some offers to join another publication.
Yeah, he left, for full context, he left The Blaze, I think.
Before it
CRTV or whatever.
Before it actually became The Blaze. He does make it clear, I think right before this part, that he is not talking about The Blaze, and Steven Crowder does not actually say who he's talking about, and we give him credit for that because he's giving them a chance to maybe change their ways. So we'll continue.
Some Sherlock Holmes work. There are far more people beneath the tip of the iceberg than you know about who are trying to get into this space. There are more than you would probably assume.
It is us.
I went into free agency. I looked over the offers, and I saw the clause come out. And I don't just mean unreasonable demands for control, but what I would argue are immoral terms that actually punish conservative content creators on behalf of big tech. And that's something that I just couldn't unsee. And I want to let you, it's not the exception. It's the rule. Kids out there coming up. We need to build a bench here in this movement. It's almost impossible. Don't sign these contracts.
Okay.
I now know what you are signing out there. I have the luxury of not having to. I don't have to be here. I don't have to say this. Please, don't sign this. Certainly not without professional legal counsel representation. Do not sign something that includes, let me go through this. Effectively, full ownership of all your social media platforms, channels, in perpetuity, the rights to your content, name, image, likeness, even the ones that you've built. Don't sign contracts out there that include multi-million-dollar penalties for different. Let me read you an example of what I mean. And this would be if it was me. If Crowder fails to deliver a monthly content in any month or any of the quarterly content in the corner, including any and all ad reads, and by the way, all these contracts came with 3, 4, 5 ad reads per show, which would fundamentally change what this show is.
That's what makes you think it's the Daily Wire.
So if I failed to do that, it would be a $250,000 reduction in fee per quarter. If, let's say, we did do everything per quarter, but annually maybe missed something, like let's say we went and did a Change My Mind instead of a daily show, which of course requires a lot more work, it'd be a separate $1 million penalty for that if you miss a single piece of content. And the amount of content required is not in line with, frankly, it's worse than Disney, it's worse than ABC, it's worse than NBC, it's worse than CBS. This is ownership of you and everything that you do. But here's, just to drive it home, don't sign something that has another $100,000 daily penalty if it's not signed off on beforehand. You get hit by a car, you have a sick day, you could lose $100,000 a day. Hey, anyone wonder why there's burnout in this? Anyone wonder why you have kids come up and they leave and never to come back? You think if you had that kind of a penalty, you think if someone said, hey, we're going to penalize you $10,000 every day you miss coming into work, you think you'd be stressed? This is worse than the left frames their contracts. Again, of course I didn't sign any of these things. But I now know what other kids are signing out there. And here's the worst part. Yeah, that's terrible. I think it's, I just think that's wrong to treat people that way. But this is where, in going through this, and I needed to take some time because, look, I've always tried to be a happy warrior, and I want to go back to that. I haven't been happy for a while. To be really, I haven't been happy for a while because when you know what goes on behind these scenes, and you see how many people are complicit, it creates an air of hopelessness. It really does. Where you think the people who are supposed to be linking arms and fighting with you, fighting for you, want to punish you. So here's the worst part. Do not, kids, under any circumstances, sign a contract with people who claim to be conservative, but will penalize you 25% for any demonetization or sponsor boycott. Look, let me read this to you. If any of the major platforms, oh no, sorry, that's the second one. Let me go back to the first one. There's another 20%. It's 45% to get a content strike. Let's start with the demonetization. If blank is boycotted or dropped by more than 50% of the advertising partners, the company is not able to replace them within 90 days, the fee will be reduced by 25%. That's a sponsorship boycott. So that's saying, hey, liberals, boycotts work. They work on our guys. We'll punish them for you. Let me go on. Specifically, YouTube demonetization. If any of the major platforms issues a content strike such that Crowder cannot be monetized on such platform, and the company is not able to resolve the issue within 90 days, the fee will be reduced by 25% moving forward. Now, I thought this was a mistake because, these people maybe didn't know who I am, that we've been demonetized for 3 years. No, it's made very clear to me in no uncertain terms. This is what's sent out to everybody. And then if you get a strike, meaning a suspension, another 20% reduction. And then another 20% of it happens on Apple. And then another 10% of it happens on Facebook. And then another 10% of it happens on Spotify. Imagine you're deplatformed, as we've seen in the past, where all of the major entities decide to remove you in one day. Rather than having a conservative alternative, you would now be down to 5 to 15% of the revenue of your contract. Think about this for a second. Those in charge, the big conservative, the big con, and it really is the biggest con going right now, they're making it known in their contracts that they will enforce the guidelines of big tech and punish conservatives on their behalf. Don't worry, Wojcicki. Trust me, these conservatives will stay in line. If they get demonetized, we take away 25% of their operating budget.
So
you paused it really good. I like that.
no, I did, and it's basically all we need to play. Like, look, I look at this and this is one of the reasons why of the more conservative pundits, most of which I can't fucking stand, I have a little bit more respect for Steven Crowder. I've always had more respect for Steven Crowder than I've had for most of the others, than the PragerUs and the Daily Wires of the world, because first of all, I think he's kind of funny. he makes me giggle sometimes.
This is the most genuine I've ever seen him.
Yeah, but he's absolutely right. Okay, so if you call yourself a conservative, right, which you and I do not do, but if you did, and you go and you start creating content under the guise of, I don't know, family values or fighting wokeism, like we often see from some of these other publications, and then you find out that they're offering contracts like this, where they're willing to go against their values in order to just have their content on places like YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. They're willing to
self-censorship.
They're willing to go out and cut to the quote unquote left and big tech to make sure that their content is available. Now, why would they do that, Corey? Because how else can you make money? At the end of the day, that is what these fuckers care about. It's the problem I've always had with Donald Trump. It's the problem I've always had with people that follow in Donald Trump's footsteps. These people aren't actual conservatives, okay? They're not. They never were. They saw a market. These fucking people are businessmen. They saw a market that they could exploit, and it's disaffected conservatives who are afraid of socialism. That's what they've done. And that's...
You're saying ultimately it is just a grift.
100%. Yeah,
I
disagree with all of that. Like, I don't like that school of thought that far conservative, but I can at least respect it if it is an actual moral value that you carry.
Right. And it's like, me personally, I've never, like, I'll listen to like the Ben Shapiro podcast, the Ben Shapiro show, I never really listened to Crowder. I've always considered him personally as someone who is what we just talked about, like a grifter, doing things for the shock value, like a shock jock kind of thing. Just saying things to get a rise out of people and things like that, being controversial intentionally. But for the first time, him saying this shit, like it kind of hits home. Like, I don't know, like personally for you and I, like we're trying to crack that egg. We're trying to get into this space to be like entertainers and stuff like that. Like it's no secret. We're trying to make a thing of this. This is a hobby right now, but like we're trying to like get to the point where, hey, Brightness, we're trying to get to the point to where this is what we do for a living. And to hear someone else who's essentially made it And when he's talking about like, now if someone doesn't do this like we're doing, and he's talking about all these kids and stuff like that, like there's not a personal connection with that. But for you and I, there is like it feels like he's talking to people like you and I. And it's insane to me that even though it's considered alternative media, how fast the almighty dollar has circumvented like what people were trying to do to fight the establishment and stuff like that. Whether you're conservative, whether you're liberal, you could talk about the Kyle Kalinskis who are doing it on the left. You could talk about the Steven Crowders who are doing it on the right. How fast they're falling into the fold of, and cucking out the big tech and things like that. And so in hearing Steven Crowder say this stuff, it's the most genuine I think he's ever sounded to me. I don't really watch much of his stuff. I watch his couple like few minute clips and things like that and stuff here and there. But yeah, no, I mean when he was saying this shit, it was almost like a rah-rah from me in a sense. For him sticking it to not mainstream media, but the alternative media. And here he is turning down a lot of money for the sake of his principle.
Right? Because that's supposed to be a big piece of conservatism, right? That like I study conservatism and I listen to conservatism. I don't ascribe to the conservative philosophy per se, but one of the things that I've always gotten out of conservatives is principle. Principle, 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 principle. That's like the number one word you hear, unless they're religious conservatives, and then God's probably thrown in there somewhere. But yeah, when you're talking about, demonetizing being a penalty in the conservative media space when you sign a contract.
When these people that are writing these contracts are sitting there talking about how they're demonetized all the time, but then in their contracts behind the scenes, they're like, well, you better not.
You can't be demonetized. And it does make you wonder how, because now the speculation in a lot of the comments, right? So obviously Steven didn't say who this contract was from, but the speculation online so far that I've been able to see in my my amateur sleuthiness is that people are pretty sure this was the Daily Wire that offered him this contract.
Right. Well, let's think about it. PragerU wouldn't touch Crowder. PragerU is kind of milquetoast.
A little bit GC. Although they do have that Amala chick. She's a little bit controversial, I guess. But yeah, she doesn't really ever say anything that would, I guess,
she's not controversial. Just the only people that find like she's not saying, like, she's saying controversial things, but she's not doing it in the shock jock type thing.
Yeah, like, it's very because I listen to her show once in a while. It's very well thought out. She's pretty brilliant. I don't.
She comes across as you might not agree with what she's saying, but it's almost like it's in good faith.
Yeah, and you can understand what she's saying. And what's funny is like I like her, but like Dennis Prager can fuck all the way off.
Right,
that guy drives me up a wall. But yeah,
which is also what they, and you really, if you want to like zoom out, like and Google Earth style, look how much Candace Owens has become a lot more milquetoast since she joined Daily Wire. She's not nearly as controversial as she used to be.
I just haven't paid as much attention to her.
She used to say way more outlandish things, I feel like, than she does now.
She did wear a White Lives Matter hoodie with Kanye not long ago. So that was pretty
oh man, that's controversial. Man, a black girl wearing a White Lives Matter shirt.
But you know what's funny is like when it comes to like consuming conservative things, I get a lot more out of like those man on the street videos that you see on TikTok. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
Like literally, you'll have a black man, which makes this even more fantastic. You'll have a black man who will go out and ask a question to random college students like, do you think white lives matter? And they will always tiptoe around an answer. It'll always be like, yeah, but in context, not as much as such and such, and it's just a yes or no question.
Well, it's because it's the reason why that's controversial. It's not the statement itself. It's the context of what it implies.
But who puts that
If you
context?
really want to, white supremacists, that's who puts that into context. Those are the ones that put it into context. Like if there wasn't a bunch of bullshit around it, then obviously it's clear to say, yeah, white lives matter, yeah, black lives matter, all lives matter, sure. But
fundamentally true statements that have been
fundamentally true statements, but
politicized to a point where they don't mean fucking anything anymore.
right, but like when it comes down to it, to where it's like white lives matter wasn't said until black lives matter was said.
You're right. It
So
was a very reactionary thing. But
yeah,
that's the thing that frustrates me about the cultural right, right? So they have this ability to be the voices of reason at this point, because you and I look at this and we agree that the cultural left is a mess. I mean, just an unmitigated mess. But the issue that I have with the cultural right is all they do is react. They are not proactive in any way whatsoever. They just
right.
react to whatever nonsense the cultural left is throwing out into the lexicon, instead of being proactive and out in front of it, or ignoring it in certain instances. Like when the cultural left comes out with the Black Lives Matter movement, which we've since found out, fundamentally from the beginning was a good thing, until we realized people were grifting off of it, people were making money off of it, and then it became this kind of gross cringe thing. All the right had to do was just kind of ignore it and just be like, yeah, Black lives do matter, but I'm not gonna like participate in this grift over here. That's all they had to do. They didn't have to be like, whoa, all lives matter, yeah.
But that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, and they just get so pissed so fast, instead of just taking a step back and going, how ridiculous is this thing that's going on here? And realizing that, yes, fundamentally at its core, the statement Black Lives Matter is true.
Isn't that frustrating? Because like they could have just been like, it's so weird how like they kneecap themselves and
It's
cubby
almost
hold
like,
themselves, to where it's like when they said Black Lives Matter, because black people are getting killed by police, instead of just pretending that like, oh well, they're all criminals, that's why they're getting killed, they could have been like, well, actually more white people are killed by cops, so maybe all lives do matter, and then maybe we should be taking truth to power and attacking this issue that cops are killing a lot of people. Instead, they doubled down on the race
and
issue.
if you think about it, cops are killing a lot of people of lower income, so it's almost like it's a class issue. How interesting.
Like, imagine how much better our country would be if if the fucking conservatives did that, instead of just pretending like it wasn't an issue.
No, they just
But instead they just went,
they get
oh yeah, you know what? Actually, like they just like opened a fucking book and went, holy shit, actually.
well, actually,
Well, actually, more white people are killed by cops than black people. This is a problem. Let's work on this.
no, it's always got to be this angry reactionary thing of like, we can't let the left have any more cultural points, right?
Stop rocking my boat. I'm just over here trying to live.
Because they're so far behind the cultural 8 ball at this point that they are grasping at straws. And the thing is,
That's why
they could have caught up way faster, and it's starting to come around, right? Because we're all kind of realizing how ridiculous the cultural left is in this country. Even the left is starting to come around on that, as we talked about with Velma. So if you're listening live, go check out the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. So yeah, it's just, the right just needs to stop being so reactionary, and they also need to have answers. They don't have any fucking answers. Their answers are always, we just got to fight wokeism, or we got to fight the left, or we got to fight, chicks with dicks or whatever the fuck their phrase is of the day, they don't ever have answers. It's always reactionary.
Fucking DeSantis. Florida is where wokeism comes to die.
Right. That's it. Like that's to me, like for me, that's not enough. Just fighting wokeism, if you want me to like move from my more, left-leaning libertarian values, that's not going to get me to be a fucking conservative. Fighting wokeism is not enough for me. It's not enough. Have answers for actual issues.
Because wokeism, I can turn off. I don't have to watch Velma.
Right.
But you couple fighting wokeism with your draconian laws of trying to create a nanny state in all the wrong ways and then not help poor people in all the right ways by just kneecapping like things like reproductive rights and trying to like ban free speech in books that make you uncomfortable and things like that. That's not going to do it for me.
Yeah, this idea that the right cares about free speech is bullshit. They don't care about free speech.
Right.
They just want their free speech. They want to be able to say the things they want to say and cancel the things that people on the left want to say. And the people on the left want to do the same thing to people on the right. Nobody's a fucking free speech absolutist. That's bullshit.
I like to say I am.
You're not. I guarantee you have your limit. I guarantee you have your limit of things that should not be said. Will you walk out into public and say the N-word?
Me? No.
Would you defend my right to do it if I wanted to do it?
In principle, yes, but also if you got decked in the face for it, I would be like, well, you fucking idiot. What did you expect? I wouldn't defend you for saying it. I would like, well, yeah, he said it and he got
what I mean by
free
speech absolutist, Corey, is like, yeah, so I would agree with you from the standpoint of like if I or you or for whatever reason some dumb white idiot wanted to run out into the street and scream the N-word 10 times, I would stand by the fact that they shouldn't be arrested for that.
Right.
But now when it comes to Twitter and social media and what's okay to take down and what's not okay to take down, it becomes way more nuanced than that. And
that's true because anytime someone said like, and that's the thing too that kills me about this is like, anytime you see somebody say something on that, like on platforms where it's not like super restrictive, the comments is everyone just running them through the dirt and dog shitting all over them.
Yeah, and that's deserved.
100%.
They earned it.
100%. There's country songs that say like freedom of speech protects you from the government, not from me. That's 100% true.
Not from
you go out and say dumb shit, you get clocked in the mouth.
Not from the court of public opinion.
The court of public opinion sometimes is more important than the court of judicial legislation and all that.
Corey, I know a word that should be canceled.
What's that?
Removed from the English lexicon. Classified. Word that nobody fucking understands, including us. And yeah,
it's all arbitrary.
Obviously, we're talking about Biden's classified documents, right? This is one of the big stories of the week, the last week and a half, last couple of weeks. And I don't know if you feel any different than you did last week when we briefly touched on this, Corey, but I still just don't give a shit.
So here's what I was thinking about this a little bit today. And like, I know in the last, I think 2 episodes, we talked about how both Trump's classified documents and Biden's classified documents are a big nothing burger. But as I was thinking about it a little bit more, there are certain rules and laws that people that are public servants are supposed to abide by. And both of them straight broke the law. And both of them should probably be held to some sort of accountability.
So why are we pretending? Why is it that people that hate Trump or people that hate Biden, because people that hate both are like you and me, because we hate both and don't give a shit. But people that just hate Trump or just hate Biden, why are they pretending like one is worse than the other?
Okay, so when you want to break it down to like real like legalistic terms, technically.
Legalistic, is that a word? I like it. We're making it a word if it's not one now.
Legalistic. Technically, a lot of Biden's classified documents were snagged when he was a vice president, not a president. So I guess there's less of a legal standing for him than there was when it was Trump. But in both cases, it's straight negligence that they grabbed that shit. And I know that we said on the show before that, like, when you get fired from a job or you quit your job, you take everything off your desk, you throw it in a fucking briefcase or in a one of those bank totes. What are those banker boxes? You throw all your shit in the box and you throw it in your garage when you get home. So when it comes to that action, I think that's probably what happened. So it's like, meh, whatever. But what frustrates me is if you were an aide to either of these guys and you were also cleaning off your desk or you were cleaning off their desk and something happened and then all of a sudden you had one of those documents at your house that you didn't look at for 20 years, you'd have the book thrown at you. You'd be in jail. If you or I had any of those documents by some weird circumstance, we'd be in jail. But when it's someone who's at the top, they're going to get a pass like both of these guys.
Would we though? Because I look at this term classified, right? And both when it happened at Mar-a-Lago and now when it's happening with Biden, the term classified is just thrown around like, well, it's fucking classified. And nobody fucking knows what the word means when it comes to actual
double top secret.
Nobody knows this shit, Corey. Like, a classified document could be the goddamn grocery list for a state dinner that was supposed to take place at the vice president's house. Like, classified can mean anything. So I'm going to say the same thing about Biden's classified documents that I said about Trump. Show me something that actually suggests,
well, Dan, we can't.
A danger to the nation. Why? Because it's not in there.
We can't. No, Dan, we can't because it's classified.
Oh, that's right. I don't know what it actually is because it's so classified. The nation can never actually know what's in it.
Oh man, it's
who cares?
Trust me,
Dude,
Dan, it's classified.
I'm so irritated by this shit. As irritated by this as I was by when it happened to Trump. Nothing is going to happen. It's just a stupid goddamn political football, another political football that both parties are going to toss back and forth at each other now until the end of time.
And none of us are going to know
because I am.
And Dan, why won't either of us know what's in these documents?
Because we're too stupid.
Why? No, there's a word right in the banner. Why won't we know what's in it?
Because we don't know what this word means.
Because it's classified.
It's just so exhausting, Corey. It's so exhausting.
And isn't that interesting? It's like they're paper documents. It's not like it's on a server. Hillary Clinton. That can be hacked or taken.
Don't care
that
about
one. Actually, that one is actually one that's kind of bad. If it's in a cloud, it can be grabbed, manipulated, used.
I get it. But I'll ask you the same question I asked you about Biden and Trump. What was in it?
Well, I don't know. It's classified.
Nobody knows. It's too classified. We're too stupid to know. So clearly the rest of the world doesn't know either. So who the fuck cares? If I don't know what's in it and you don't know what's in it, and the conservatives don't know what's in it and the liberals don't know what's in it and the Democrats and the Republicans don't know what's in it, why in the fuck do we continue to argue about this shit? Now, I will say this. Should we continue to hold these people accountable and like maybe stop this from happening in the future? Sure. I'm okay with that. But not if it's going to be used as a political football to kick back and forth about, well, this person took these documents home and this person took these documents home and they're a bad boy and I'm okay because I did it by accident and I turned it over like I was supposed to.
You're a bad boy. He's a bad boy. You're a bad boy. It's time for a timeout.
I just got angry there for a minute and I did not expect to get angry.
Because it's the political shroud around it is bullshit. And I get that, but what I'm getting at is like, well, these are people who are serving our country that we should be holding to some sort of accountability when they're not doing just the basic job of vetting their own documents when they're leaving.
Well, here's the thing, Corey. So especially in the case of, All right, so let's say Barack Obama did it, because I'm going to assume
I bet you he did. I bet
Yes.
you go through Barack Obama's all of his files. I bet you he has top secret documents, and I bet you that Bush does,
Bush.
and I bet you that Clinton does,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I bet you that Bush Senior does, and I bet you that Reagan does, and I bet you that what's
they're-
his
he's dead.
fucking face, the peanut farmer Ford,
Jimmy Carter.
and then Carter and Nixon,
Jimmy
and all
Carter-
the way down the fucking thing to where all of a sudden there was top secret documents back to
Well,
like
here's the
what,
thing. Here's
World
the thing,
War
right?
One.
Here's the thing, Corey. Biden and Trump are a little different because Trump had a chance to be reelected, and Biden hadn't been elected. But let's go back to Obama, or Bush or Clinton. All three are presidents that serve 2 terms, right? If you're the president of the United States and you got shit all over your desk, and it's time to go home and live off of whatever the fuck you get to live off of for the rest of your life and make $40 billion off of speeches, and you're just done. Are you taking time to vet those documents that are on your desk?
No, you're throwing them in
packing
a
them
box
back
and
in a
then
box?
forgetting about them.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Just like any of us would do. Yeah, think about the day you retire, Corey. I know you don't work in an office, but maybe someday you will. You work in an office. You got all these documents on your desk, all company property, company shit. I am not taking the time on my last day of work to go through that shit. It's going in a box. It's coming home with me, and I'm throwing it in a corner.
I know it's funny you say that because like I was just going through some old shit of stuff that I've just collected over the years. I'm moving stuff around and I have this little bin of just odds and ends and things and stuff like that, and like just random shit. And I had a spoon that I stole from prom
Oh,
that I forgot that I had
Well,
from
should
20
prosecute you.
goddamn years ago. Well, actually, no, it'd be like
Go to the
15
Rooster
years
Tail,
ago or whatever. But
or wherever you stole that from.
Pennas.
That's so Macomb County.
Nobody knows what the fuck I'm talking about,
Our
but Penna's
listeners-
Banquet Hall.
Our Metro Detroit listeners understand. It's Macomb County. I'm from Oakland County, so we went to the Rooster Tail.
Really?
That was
No, we went to Penna's, and then there was another we went to. I forget.
Anyway. God, dude, we're already an hour and 7 in. We got to get through some shit here. Let's move on to the next topic. Classified documents. Nobody cares. Stop it. I don't think I want to talk about this anymore. Unless something actually gets revealed. Can we agree? Are we good there?
Yeah.
No more classified document shit unless something actually comes out of it. This one's for you, Corey. This was your child of this episode. South Carolina does what state governments were meant to do with regards to Roe v. Wade. So, Corey, you and I talked when Roe v. Wade was overturned. We've talked about it a few times since, about how if we had our druthers, I'm pretty sure you agree with me on this, that Roe v. Wade would still exist. However, the fact that it was repealed, not the end of the world that folks on the left wanted to make it out to be. And what's happening slowly is exactly what we predicted. This was a law that was repealed to send abortion rights and laws back to the states. And it's playing out actually even better than I thought it would. You've already had Kansas. You've already had I think Indiana was a loss, I guess, if you're a pro-choice person. But we're seeing,
But it's currently blocked. So
yeah.
in Indiana has acted a new total ban on abortion, which took effect on September 15th, 2022, but is currently blocked.
By the state Supreme Court, I assume?
Yeah, I believe so.
So South Carolina now, another, I would guess most people would call a conservative state. Maybe some South Carolinians that listen to the show can chime in on that.
Yeah, so there's a difference between blocked and permanently enjoined. And enjoined means let me find the actual enjoined means the state cannot enforce a law that would otherwise be effective because of the decision by a court to temporarily or permanently enjoin its enforcement. Yeah, so the South Carolina just said, nah, you can't do that.
So
And-
okay, so explain it again. I'm sorry. I mean, so South Carolina
tried to enact a 6-week abortion ban,
Okay.
but it has been permanently enjoined by the state Supreme Court as a violation of the South Carolina's constitutional right to privacy.
So then what would South Carolina's law be while this is kind of on hold?
I don't know. It's private. It's between that person and the doctor.
Oh, okay. So there's no limit.
Yeah.
As far as we know at this point. Okay. So what's interesting about that is like even the law that South Carolina was trying to get through, the 6-week abortion ban, is, again, as we talked about when Roe v. Wade was overturned, it's on par with a lot of what you would consider more liberal European nations, right?
Right. Yeah, like a lot of the European nations is like 12 weeks, I think.
Right. 12. And I don't believe anybody's over 24.
So right now I just pulled up a map. I'm on the Center reproductiverights.org, the Center for Reproductive Rights, and here's a map of all the different states, which is actually pretty interesting. It shows you what each state is. Like, for example, if we're in Michigan, we approved Prop 3, which enshrines reproductive freedom in the Michigan Constitution. States like Minnesota, abortion remained legal in Minnesota, obviously California, Oregon, Washington, New York, Vermont, New Jersey, what is this one? Connecticut. Where's Rhode Island?
It's the tiny one.
A little boy right there, Rhode Island. Yeah. But so other than this swath right here, it's considered illegal. So these are the only states that it's considered illegal.
Idaho, South Dakota, and then the South.
Yeah. Not even all the South. Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, New Mexico. I guess that's considered the
that's the West.
Southwest, yeah. But a lot of these states have trigger bans. But it's interesting how fast like all the cards are falling. And I think that the Supreme Court actually made it to where, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think came up recently. Didn't the Supreme Court block something to where states can't block people from going to other states to get abortions?
Right. It's no different than going to another state and buying marijuana and smoking it
and then in that state and then coming home.
Yeah, without any marijuana. Yeah, it's just constitutionally you just can't do that shit.
And so if we're looking at just the illegal states, which one was it? Like each one, like West Virginia has enacted a total ban on abortion and claims its pre-Roe criminal abortion ban is enforceable, although the ban is currently enjoined. So even in West Virginia, where it's considered illegal, it's not enforceable. So we're seeing in a lot of states when it comes to abortion or reproductive rights, it's milk toast at best. Like a lot of these states are not able, there's no like teeth to any of these laws.
Well, and here's what I find interesting, Corey, because like a lot of the fear was that like, okay, so if Republicans get this and conservatives get this and they get Roe overturned, their next step is going to be to go for a national abortion ban. And I have no doubt that maybe at some point they will go for that. But I have to believe I have this really weird, after the Rose situation, I actually have this really weird faith in the judicial system, not the criminal justice system, which is still fucked, but the judicial system in interpreting laws as given to us by the Constitution.
Right, because
I feel like the overturning of Roe, while I didn't approve of it, I didn't like it. I would love if it still existed. I understood it once I looked at how legally flimsy it actually was. So I look at that and I go, okay, that's the Supreme Court, while not doing what I wanted, kind of doing what legally made sense. And I have to tell you that if conservatives or Republicans really go for a national abortion ban, I actually have faith, even with this conservative Supreme Court, to say, no, fuck you. We're not doing a national abortion.
Yeah, because
it's not up to us.
Yeah, because they if they tried to do something like that, all of these states that are yellow and green, and even the red ones that the laws are enjoined, a federal law like that could easily be ignored based on the 10th Amendment. And that was like that's one weird thing. Remember if we talk when like if you go back and listen, one thing that was like interesting about the overturning of Roe v. Wade is it didn't strip the rights of abortion. It threw it back to the states.
100%. Yep.
And where I found solace in that is the fact that it was one of the only branches of government that was restricting its own power.
Yeah.
And
that.
and in doing that, a lot of these states are figuring it out. I have so much compassion for all of these states that these women lost their rights. It's frustrating that in the restriction of a branch of power, these states right here that I'm hovering over,
and if you're just
women have less rights.
Basically hovering over
Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, all the states that when we talk about people who aren't smart, we mimic their dialect.
Even though it's probably unfair. We love our Southern listeners. But yeah, this is the kind of thing that you won't see in more liberal media, like a Southern state like South Carolina, essentially making a pro-choice legal decision. And you have to give credit
because they're objectively looking at their constitution and going, well, this is what's in the books.
Yeah. Yeah. It's look, the reason we for after all these years we still argue about abortion is because it is fucking complicated. If it were considered murder, like some people think it is, some people think abortion is murder. I don't think that, but some people do. Here's the thing. If abortion was murder, it would be fucking illegal. We would all
here's the difference, Dan.
We all agree that it's murder. We'd all agree that it's illegal because we all agree murder's illegal, right?
So here's where I'm at with it. I'm not going to tell anybody who thinks that abortion is murder that it's not and try to argue that point. But what I will do is go, even if you think it's murder, your subjective opinion doesn't supersede someone else's personal liberty. You can think it's murder all day long. You can sit out front of Planned Parenthoods and then shout. You could try to help someone who's pregnant with everything they can to help them to have their kid. Sure, all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, trying to get the government to be a nanny state to decide for someone's personal decisions is no different than when liberals try to get you to accept something like a Christian conservative having to bake a cake for a gay person.
Or just even gay people getting married.
Right. Same goddamn thing. You're trying to make the government that you want into a nanny state to legislate something because you find it personally uncomfortable.
Yeah, fair enough. But we're gonna give a small kudos to the
South Carolina Supreme Court.
We did it. We did it. We did it. We did it.
Women have reproductive freedom in South Carolina.
Oh, huge round of applause.
That's why I'm glad Michigan, with all of our faults, we have straight ballot initiatives.
That applause went on a lot longer than I thought it would.
That's okay. It was worth it, every second of it.
Oh, how far in are we, Corey? Hour 19. We got time to talk about your fun little topic here.
Which one?
Vaccines for bees?
Vaccines for bees?
To see the conspiracy theory behind this one. So, Corey, you and I talked about this. You have the actual story, which is going to be fun to talk about.
I do not have pulled up.
No, I'm going to set it up for you real quick. So Corey and I, we were talking about this particular scientific revelation, and our immediate first thought was, are conservative beekeepers going to deny this vaccine, and are liberal beekeepers going to accuse conservative beekeepers of being bee genocidists when they don't allow their bees to get these vaccines?
Right.
What a stupid joke. I'm
So
sorry.
quick synopsis is the world's first honeybee vaccine has been approved by the United States. It prevents American foul brood, a highly contagious bacterial disease that reduces larva to brown goo. The vaccine contains a dead version of the bacteria and is incorporated into the royal jelly that worker bees feed to the queen.
Well, I like that they call it the royal jelly. That's so
You've never heard that term before?
I love that.
It's the jelly they make for the queen to eat to keep just pumping out.
I've heard it before. I just love
larva.
it. It's such a regal term.
But yeah, they're making it. It's a vaccine. So bees, because bees, like, apparently there's this bacterial disease that is just fucking knocking out fucking whole colonies of bees, and it's gonna help bees be able to fight that, and it's a vaccine for them.
But what if the vaccine gives the bees myocarditis?
Do bees have hearts? I guess they have hearts, right?
Assuming they do.
I don't know. You have to look up. Do bees have myocarditis?
Can bees get myocarditis from their vaccine?
DuckDuckGo is just gonna. Its only response is gonna be like, "No, what the fuck?"
Bees do have one heart that pumps blood to the rest of their body. They do have a heart. So
you should go bees have heart attacks.
They could get inflammation of the heart, which is what myocarditis is. So they theoretically, I would assume bees could get myocarditis.
No, but yeah, probably. I guess they could have heart attacks, but I don't know if bees actually have heart attacks. I guess Google, do bees have heart attacks? But either way, this is
I actually just Googled, do bees get myocarditis? And everything is like myocarditis bullshit for people. So
no, but this is a good one. This is where like bees are actually like really important to virtually everything that we have.
100%, yeah.
And it's small advancements in science and technology and things like this that are just going to help better secure our future for us and our children and things like that. And I don't know, I'm such a nerd for things like this that to see the idea that the bee civilization can be more stable, even if this is like us as humans being this very adaptable species, we have a habit of just throwing ourselves wherever we want, fucking up the environment, and then fixing problems that we created. And this is another example of us fixing issues that we created for ourselves.
So here's something interesting, Corey. Bees cannot have heart attacks. Do you know why?
No, I don't.
They do not have blood vessels.
Interesting.
Many insects do not. Some insects have hearts but no blood vessels, and a heart attack occurs when fatty deposits or clots block blood vessels. So bees cannot have heart attacks. But theoretically, seeing as they have hearts, they could get inflammation of the heart, and they could have myocarditis from these evil vaccines.
I mean, this is a huge step in the right direction. So right now I'm on the New York Times, and the company Dallin Animal Health, which is based in Athens, Georgia, developed a prophylactic vaccine that protects honeybees from American foul brood, an aggressive bacterium that can spread quickly from hive to hive. Previous treatments included burning infected colonies and all of the associated equipment for using antibiotics. So before we just fucking burned them.
Burn them. We already have.
But yeah. Like, I don't know. I always thought bees were super interesting. I always thought colony species like bees and ants both were really interesting.
They are, dude. I've actually like looked into like, you know how you can get those glass enclosures where you can like have bee colonies in your house.
Yeah.
They can only go in and out of the enclosure outside. I always thought that was super interesting.
If I get land, I'm gonna get a bee. I'm gonna get bees. once I finally get like property, if I have enough to where I can keep a bee colony like about a football field away from the house to where it's not gonna fuck with my family and stuff like that, I will absolutely have one.
Bees
At my,
you know what's interesting is like bees get a bad rap in that way. They don't really fuck with people.
I guess it depends. There's European bees, then there's Africanized bees, and then when the two breed, that's what creates killer bees.
Understood.
And killer bees aren't any more venomous or like their stings aren't any more dangerous than European bees. They're just more aggressive.
Your traditional honeybee in our area, though, is a pretty docile creature. I've had them crawl on me before and not been worried. It's very, very rare that they actually sting you.
Oh yeah, dude. When I was a little kid, I would take like the sweetness, like basically I guess you equivalent to like that, like the juice inside of a gusher. And I'd put it on my finger and I would go by like bees like flying around like flowers and stuff, and they would land on my finger and come and eat some of it and leave and stuff like that. And
Yeah, they're pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I've always had like a weird connection with bees and ants.
You didn't burn them. You didn't burn them with your
Oh, I would do shit like that too. Dude, me and my friends were so fucking goofy when it came to insects. We would go and take wiffle bats, find a hornet's nest, like the ones that they put inside the gutters and stuff like that, hit the awning to where they all fly out and smack all the hornets out of the air with the bats, knock down the nest, and then take the nest and pull out the larva and then put it between two ant hills and watch the two ant colonies come and fight each other over the larva.
That's fucking weird. That needs to be a child's movie.
That's what
It needs to be some woke children's film where you're played by an Indian person and your friends are all played by Asian people, and you have
my friends call me God. It's just some weird thing we did as kids, but yeah, no, we used to always just play with insects and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I always thought bees were really interesting.
So we're for the bee vaccine.
Yeah, I'm for the bee vaccine.
Let's go bee vaccine.
Save the bees.
As long as they don't get myocarditis. Corey, I think we got a call tonight. Tell the people where they can find us.
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. And you can find our monologues at libservativepodcast.wordpress.com. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast. And you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com.
And find us wherever you get your favorite podcast.
Subscribe today. And if you liked what you heard today, then just share it with a friend. I don't expect you to share it on your Facebook page to expose all your dirty laundry or anything. But if you like this show, you have at least one friend that you know would be interested in the show, and share it with them for a conversation piece. Share
it even if you hated it. Corey and I do that all the time. We share things that we hate with each other.
Yeah, listen to these assholes.
This has been Libservative, the show of two intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. And until next time, he's been Corey Walsh.
And he's been Dan Griffin.
It's been Libservative, and we are out of here.